Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual general meeting. I am sorry that I cannot welcome you here in Zurich in person, following the recent relaxation of COVID-19 protection measures. ABB's Board of Directors has reassessed the situation. We have concluded, however, to proceed with a virtual annual general meeting without personal attendance of shareholders in the interest of everybody's health and safety. We thank you for your understanding, and I am glad to see that you are making use of the possibility to follow our meeting through the webcast. Again, a warm welcome from my side. I hereby open our annual general meeting with some formal statements. In accordance with Article 14 of our Articles of Incorporation, I, as Chairman of the Board of Directors, take the chair at the annual general meeting. I'm joined here on the podium by Björn Rosengren, our CEO, and next to him Maria Barcelona. Mrs. Barcelona handed over her responsibilities as General Counsel to her successor at the beginning of March, her successor being Andrea Antonelli. However, she is still in charge as Secretary to the Board of Directors until today's shareholder meeting and will therefore also be keeping the minutes. All the best, Maria, and we are very confident that you will also be very successful in your future position. I would also like to welcome Mr. Daniel Alemann, Notary Public from the Zurich Oerlikon's Notary Office. He will draw up a public deed relating to the resolution on the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation proposed for the capital reduction through cancellation of repurchased shares. I welcome Dr. Hans Zender as the independent proxy. I appoint Mr. Christian Hediger, member of ABB's legal department, as vote counter for today's meeting. KPMG, our auditors, are represented by Mr. Hans-Dieter Kraus. He's also attending the meeting as a licensed audit expert in connection with the proposed capital reduction and the related auditor's report required as per Article 732 of the Swiss Code of Obligations. The invitation to the annual general meeting was published on the 25th of February 2022 in the Swiss Commercial Gazette and also in abbreviated form in various daily newspapers, complying with the statutory notice period of 20 days. Shareholders entered in the share register were additionally notified of the annual general meeting in a letter dated 25th of February 2022. The agenda items and proposals of the Board of Directors were published together with the invitation in conformance with our Articles of Incorporation. I declare that no shareholders' requests for items to be included on the agenda have been submitted in accordance with Article 13 of our Articles of Incorporation, nor have any motions been submitted relating to the items on our agenda. Today's annual general meeting is held in compliance with the provisions of the COVID-19 Ordinance No. 3 of the Swiss Federal Council, the Swiss government of the 19th of June 2020, on measures to combat the coronavirus. I already informed you before about measures of COVID-19. Shareholders were able to exercise their shareholder rights in writing or electronically via the independent proxy. In addition, they were offered the possibility to address questions on agenda items to the Board of Directors in writing. A corresponding announcement has been published on ABB's website as of the 25th of February 2022. The annual report for 2021, with the management report, financial statements, consolidated financial statements, proposal by the board of directors relating to the appropriation of available earnings, compensation report and related reports of the auditors, was mailed upon request and was available for inspection by shareholders during the statutory time period at the company's head office. The annual report can also be accessed on our website. I now declare that this annual general meeting has been convened and constituted in accordance with the statutory and legal requirements as to form. Today's meeting is being webcast live in German and English on ABB's website. After the meeting, the recording and the minutes will be available on our website. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the reporting for financial year 2021. I will make a few remarks from the board of directors' point of view. After my comment, our CEO, Björn Rosengren, will report on the business developments of the ABB Group. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, looking back on the past year, one thing is clear. COVID-19 had and continues to have a major impact, not only on society at large, but also on the way we work here at ABB. The most important thing is, thanks to effective measures, we were once again able to protect our employees. This also enabled us to maintain our business operations and continue on our successful course. Revenues and orders grew strongly, and we were able to significantly improve our results compared with pre-pandemic levels. As a global company, we have proved that we know how to manage the crisis. But the pandemic is not over yet, and the economic impacts of the coronavirus continue to be felt. In the second half of last year, deliveries were interrupted and supply chain shortages went far beyond individual components. The challenges we faced were not only due to the semiconductor shortage, but also high commodity prices and in some regions, a shortage of skilled personnel. Nevertheless, we are confident that the worst of the delivery problems is behind us. Now, there is a devastating war in Ukraine that over the past few weeks has led not only to huge suffering for countless numbers of people, but also to new uncertainty for the entire global economy. Here too, ABB's top priority is the health and well-being of our employees and their families. In Ukraine, we have very few activities, and in Russia, where we employ around 750 people, we generated around 1 to 2% of our group sales in 2021. We have stopped taking new orders for Russia until further notice. After having suspended our business activities in Russia, we will, after careful case-by-case assessment, have to fulfill a small number of existing contractual obligations with customers, not infringing on imposed sanctions. Our crisis management team on site is continuously monitoring the situation on the ground so that we can respond quickly to changes. Full impact of the war is impossible to predict, but one thing is already clear. In the end, there will only be losers. But in spite of that, ladies and gentlemen, in spite of the war, which is cause of concern for us all, let me return to our business. Looking at global trends, that we at ABB are focusing on, we can be positive about the future. There is no question that governments and businesses must reduce emissions and use resources more efficiently. For ABB, as a supplier of electrification and automation technologies, these trends open up tremendous opportunities. The demand for electrical energy is growing twice as fast as demand for other forms of energy, and software-based automation is the most effective way to improve energy and resource efficiency. Overall, we are very satisfied with our business development. This includes the progress we have made in restructuring our group. When I look back over the last 2 to 3 years, I am proud of how much we have already accomplished. We transferred more accountability to our divisions, which improved efficiency. We made our business more robust and sustainable, and we redesigned our leadership development and succession planning. Since the announcement of the carve-out of our power grids business in December 2018, we have continued to realign and decentralize our business model. At the center of our transformation is our ambition to sustainably increase the value of our company for the benefit of all of our stakeholders. That is to say, customers, employees, shareholders, business partners, and society as a whole. By further strengthening our position in electrification and automation, we are focusing on 2 key technologies for a sustainable future. For example, I would like to mention the acquisition of ASTI Mobile Robotics. This is a crucial building block for us. ASTI is a leading global manufacturer of autonomous mobile robots. This acquisition will help us tap the growing potential in areas such as logistics and warehouse automation. This year, we will start working on 2 additional milestones in line with our strategy of active portfolio management. The exit of our turbocharging division, which has been given the new name of Accelleron, as well as the planned stock exchange listing of our e-mobility business, an IPO in other words, assuming market conditions are favorable. On the 1st of March, Daniel Bischofberger succeeded Oliver Riemenschneider as CEO of Accelleron. In the event of a spin-off, Oliver Riemenschneider would be likely to take over as the chairman of the board of directors at Accelleron. Should we decide for the option of a spin-off, we will invite you, dear shareholders, to an extraordinary general meeting to seek your approval. Concerning the planned listings in Switzerland of our ABB e-mobility division, our CEO will tell you more in his address later on. With these important changes, we are repositioning ABB while remaining true to our roots. This includes keeping our headquarters in Switzerland and investing in the canton of Aargau. ABB has demonstrated how well Swissness complements our role as a global player. This is a combination that both our customers and we ourselves value very highly. But tradition doesn't mean standing still. Our stated goal is to continue improving step by step in every possible way. Because let's be clear, changes in the business organization can only succeed if our corporate culture continues to develop and evolve. This also includes the composition of our board of directors. A year ago, we committed ourselves to strengthening gender diversity on our board of directors. As a result, we were able to quickly identify suitable female candidates who would strengthen diversity, experience, and expertise. To accommodate their personal career planning and to allow for any necessary adjustments to existing directorships, we will now propose one or more female candidates for election at the 2023 Annual General Meeting. An important part of our corporate culture is a compensation structure that, in addition to wage equality, also offers performance-based competitive incentives and drives our managers to aim for outstanding results. This will enable us to recruit, motivate, and retain top talents who will help our company strengthen its position as a global technology leader. This way, dear shareholders, we will create sustainable value for you without you having to take excessive risks. With the implementation of our ABB Way operating model, we have introduced yet another important step in our leadership development. Instead of a position-based succession planning, we have created an open job market. This means that all positions up to the executive committee will now be advertised internally. This is our way of helping our managers realize their ambitions through a fair and transparent process that promotes the best people for the respective position. Externally, we are also committed to making a positive contribution as a good corporate citizen. In particular, this means that sustainability is a top priority. We are consistently implementing our sustainability strategy in 2030. Over the past 2 years, we have managed to reduce CO2 emissions from our own sites, ABB sites in other words, by 39%. This puts us well on our way to achieving our goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. We are focusing intensively on reducing CO2 emissions throughout our entire value chain. These efforts are primarily directed at helping our customers cut their annual CO2 emissions through the development of technologies like our energy-efficient electric motors and drives and our electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We're also able to manufacture our products in an increasingly sustainable way, thanks to automation and artificial intelligence, among with other technologies. Our innovative technologies are an important contributor to the next industrial revolution. As a technology company, we want to lead the way in making supply chains and production smarter, more local and more flexible. Consumers want production to be both sustainable and as close to home as possible. Companies are automating ever faster to remain price competitive. Europe is ready to embark on a path of sustainable re-industrialization. Global supply chains, consisting of only one huge factory in a low-cost production site, will soon be history. At ABB, we have long had a policy of localized production. Whether you look towards China, the United States, or Europe, the lion's share of our revenue comes from products that are manufactured in the respective regions. In order to achieve our sustainability goals as quickly and as consistently as possible, we have clearly defined roles and responsibilities on our board of directors. While the Governance and Nomination Committee oversees corporate social responsibility, which includes health, safety, the environment, and sustainability, ultimate responsibility for our sustainability strategy and goals and our annual sustainability report rests with the board of directors as a whole. To show how seriously we take our sustainability commitment, we have linked our 2030 sustainability strategy and its ambitious goals to the short and long-term incentive plans of members of the Executive Committee. To further underscore our commitment to sustainability and long-term value creation, we have sharpened our performance focus. All members of the Executive Committee will have at least 2 ESG performance indicators incorporated in the personal component of their short-term incentive plan. At the same time, an ESG measure with a weighting of 20% has been added to ABB's long-term incentive plan for the members of the Executive Committee. Moreover, for new EC members, the share of variable, performance-based compensation, which includes ESG criteria, has also been increased. We will continue to become consistently more sustainable as we move forward, and in the coming years we will strengthen communication with you, our shareholders, including a potential non-binding vote to approve our ESG objectives at the 2023 Annual General Meeting. Our solid financial performance in 2021 confirms that the ABB Way business model we introduced in 2020 is exactly right for our company. All 4 business units or businesses have contributed to strong growth in orders and increased profitability. We were also able to raise cash flow and strengthen our balance sheet. Despite the supply chain difficulties outlined earlier, we were able to significantly improve in key businesses. In light of our improved financial results and in line with our policy of paying an increasing and sustainable dividend over time, we would like to propose a dividend of 0.82 Swiss francs, that's 82 centimes, for your approval, dear shareholders. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you, our shareholders, for your support. I wish to thank especially our CEO, Björn Rosengren, as well as the Executive Committee and all of the employees at ABB for their tremendous commitment and excellent performance in this demanding year. In view of the war in Eastern Europe, it is clear that the social and political challenges will continue in 2022. That is all the more reason for me to wish you and all of us successful and above all peaceful times. Thank you very much. Following these remarks from the point of view of the Board of Directors, I now give the floor to our CEO, Björn Rosengren. Björn, over to you.
Thank you, Sean Peter. Dear shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from my side as well. This month makes me my 2nd year as CEO of ABB. And once again, I regret that we are not able to host you here in person. It has been 2 challenging years. The world has been suffering from the pandemic, difficulties in the supply chain, and more recently, the devastating war in Ukraine. On the other hand, it has been 2 great years for ABB. We have transformed our operations and moved our accountability and the decision-making closer to our customers. This has led to improved financial performance and strengthening of our businesses I see this just as a start of an exciting journey for ABB. First, I would like to acknowledge the generosity and the solidarity of our people during the pandemic. Our board of directors, executive committee, and many of our senior leaders donated part of their compensation to support the COVID-19 relief programs for employees around the world. The money raised was used for critical medical supplies, such as oxygen tanks, as well as vaccinations and medical health support. Many of our employees also gave generously to company fundraisers to help vulnerable people and children. We made a big donation to the International Committee of the Red Cross to provide essential supplies to people living in conflict zones, as well as the World Childhood Foundation. And of course, the war in Ukraine is absolutely devastating. The human tragedy of seeing families displaced from their homes, millions of citizens seeking safety in neighboring countries, and people losing their loved ones is appalling. This should not have a place in our world today. At ABB, our first priority remains with the safety and well-being of the people and the families. Here as well, we have made significant donations to the International Red Cross, and we are proud that our employees are also supporting this initiative, with ABB matching their contribution 1-to-1. Let us now look at ABB again. In the first year of the pandemic, 2020, we implemented a new operating model, the ABB Way, to decentralize the company and move decision-making closer to our customers. Our new operating model is the foundation for ABB to drive performance management and the glue that helps to keep the group together. 2021 was a year to deliver clear financial improvements. And what a year it has been. I'm proud of our divisions and business area, which managed to exceed their tough targets, despite big supply chain challenges, like the global shortages of semiconductors and a tight labor market in the United States. For the full year of 2021, we delivered better than expected results, thanks to the operational efficiency improvements and the recovery in demand. We took a giant leap forward on the way to deliver our 2023 financial targets. Total orders were up by 20%. Revenues rose by 11%. And we increased our operational EBITDA margin by 3.1 percentage points to 14.2%. Supply chain challenges in the second half of the year meant that orders outpaced revenue growth. But on the plus side, we have a much stronger order backlog with about $17 billion to support revenues and profit going forward. Let me now turn to the individual performance of our business areas. All 4 business areas exceeded their challenging targets for the year, delivering higher orders and revenues, as well as improved profitability. Our largest business area, Electrification, grew orders and revenues by 21% and 11% respectively. The business, which is a leader in products and solutions for medium and low voltage applications, also increased its operational EBITDA margin by 2 percentage points to 16.1%. Our motion business area is the world's largest supplier of energy-efficient electric motors, drives, generators, and integrated digital powertrain solutions. In 2021, orders and revenues grew 16% and 8% respectively. Motion also increased its operational EBITDA margin slightly to 17.1%, despite the divestment of the Dodge business, which had a negative effect on the margin in the fourth quarter. Our process automation business area, which had been more negatively affected by the pandemic, recovered well last year, growing orders and revenues by 10% and 8% respectively. The business, which supplies automation, electrification, and digital solution for process industries, delivered a strong profitability improvement in the fourth quarter, resulting in a margin increase of 5 percentage points to 12.8% for the full year. Finally, our robotics and discrete automation business area came strongly back to growth last year, thanks to a recovery in key segments such as machine builders and automotive, which saw strong orders for electric vehicles. Growth was also driven by strong demand in general industry and the newly focused logistics segments. Orders were up 34% for the year, and revenues grew 13%. The business delivered a margin improvement of 2.6 percentage points to 10.8%. I think these results shows that the decentralized model is actually working. In 2021, we made strong progress in aligning our portfolio with our company purpose, which is to create superior value for our customers and contribute to a more sustainable society. We divested our Dodge business to RBC Bearings, which we believe will be a good owner for further development of that business. We got a very good price for the business, almost $3 billion. And this is probably the highest multiple ever paid for a company in the mechanical sector. In February, we announced the rebranding of our turbocharging business, which was given the new name Accelleron. It is the market lead in turbocharging and fuel-efficient technologies for sectors like marine, energy, rail, and off-highway. This is a great business with fantastic financial performance. Peter and I have already talked about the human tragedy caused by the war in Ukraine. We are witnessing the impact on the stock markets across the world. While we still want to exit the turbocharging business, the Accelleron, we will not rush to the market the final decision. We aim to do so before the end of Q2. We prefer to spin off Accelleron on the Swiss Stock Exchange, and we would, of course, seek shareholders' approval for this. The third business that we intend to exit, power conversion, is improved its performance, and we remain committed to our plans to exit this business. Now let me say a few words about the planned IPO of our e-mobility business. The strategic rationale behind the potential IPO is not to exit EV charging market, but to create the right condition to ensure that the business stays a market leader. We intend to list a minority part of the business on the Swiss Stock Exchange and support to secure the leading position for this fast-growing market. Electric vehicle charging is an extremely exciting market in which ABB has built up a leading position in AC and DC fast charging for electric cars and buses as well as trucks. To date, we have nearly sold 700,000 chargers in more than 85 countries. We are continuing with preparation work and have created a separate legal entity, ABB E-Mobility Holding AG, with good governance and a strong board of directors. As previously stated, we aim to complete a listing in Switzerland during the second quarter 2020, assuming constructive market conditions, of course. This year, we also strengthened our position in key markets. We took a controlling stake in the U.S. EV infrastructure company, EV Charging Energy, and we have increased our majority stake in Chinese EV charging provider ChargeDot in Shanghai to 80%. In 2021, our robotic division acquired a leading autonomous mobile robot manufacturer, ASTI, to help capture new opportunities in areas such as logistics and warehouse automation. With ASTI, we now have the most comprehensive industrial robot portfolio in the market. To further strengthen ABB's position in electrification and automation, which are key enabling technologies for a sustainable society, we aim to make at least 5 small to mid-sized acquisitions per year. Looking ahead, we have identified many new M&A opportunities, which we will be exploring further. And thanks to our strong financial position and healthy cash flow, we are well equipped for acquisitions as well as to return cash to the shareholders. In line with our decentralized business model, our business areas will continue to drive growth organically and through acquisitions. Alongside on our strong financial performance 2021, we made good progress towards our 2030 sustainability targets. In the past 2 years, we have reduced CO2 emissions from our own operations by 39%, in part by using our own technologies. Last year, our carbon neutrality commitment was verified by the Science Based Targets initiative as being in line with the 1.5 degrees scenario of the Paris Agreement. We are also helping our customers reduce their CO2 emissions. By 2030, through our advanced technologies, we aim to have helped reduce our customers' annual CO2 emission by at least 100 megatons, which is equivalent to the yearly emission from 30 million combustion cars. Another key sustainability goal is preserving resources for future generations. Today, 40% of our around 440 sites around the world already do not send waste to landfill. By 2030, at least 80% of ABB's products and solutions are planned to be covered by our circularity approach, which includes every stage of the product life cycle. To support a culture of diversity, of inclusion, we launched a gender neutrality parental leave program for all ABB employees in 2021. We also increased the proportion of women in senior management position to 16.3%, and that's up from 13.5% in 2020. By 2030, our goal is that at least 25% of our senior managers will be women. Finally, to ensure that sustainability is taken as seriously as any other performance targets, sustainability key performance indicators are now part of the senior management incentives, and a selection is included in our quarterly financial reports. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to our transformation, our great technologies, and most of all, our talented and motivated people, our ongoing journey to reach our 2023 targets is proceeding at an excellent pace. Going forward, we will continue to drive decentralization and accountability in our business areas and divisions according to the ABB Way operating model. We are confident about ABB's future prospects. We increased our targets in December at our Capital Market Day. However, we are also operating in a changed environment with historical challenges. Alongside supply chain issues, especially the world shortage of semiconductors, which are critical for our technologies, we face rising inflation and other macroeconomic challenges, as well as geopolitical uncertainties. We are as well prepared as a company can be. We are a global company, but we are operating very locally. We have built up strong local presence, including sourcing and production capabilities in our major markets. With our strong improved performance in the past year, our focus is now moving towards profitable growth. On behalf of the Executive Committee, I want to thank you for your trust and believing in us. We are on a journey together that I'm convinced will be beneficial to all of us, shareholders, as well as our customers, employees, and society as a whole. Thank you very much.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our agenda. I declare that Dr. Zender, as independent proxy, is representing 1,249,458,639 registered shares with a total nominal value of 149,935,036 Swiss francs and 68 centimes. This corresponds to 81.12% of the share capital with the right to vote. You can actually see the figures on screen behind me. In light of the above, I declare that this annual general meeting has the quorum to decide on all items included on the agenda. The annual general meeting decides on the proposals before us today in accordance with the law and our articles of incorporation, with an absolute majority of the share votes represented at this AGM. The resolution on the amendment of the articles of incorporation, which is proposed under agenda item 5 for the capital reduction, must be publicly authenticated by the notary public, Mr. Alemann. Furthermore, the results of all ballots and elections will be recorded in the minutes by the Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to item 1 on the agenda, approval of the management report, the consolidated financial statements, and the annual financial statements for 2021. The consolidated annual financial statements of ABB Group, i.e. the consolidated financial statements, as well as the annual financial statements of ABB Limited, can be found in the annual report. KPMG has audited both financial statements. Their auditor's report likewise form part of the annual report. Our auditors, represented by Dr. Hans-Dieter Kraus, informed me prior to the annual general meeting that they have no further comments on either the consolidated financial statements or the annual financial statements for 2021. We have received questions from shareholders on agenda item 1, to which I would like to give you my view. First up is Georg Schneider from Würenlingen, who is wondering when and how the proceeds resulting from the sale of the power grids business will be distributed to shareholders. Well, I'm happy to confirm to you that we stand by our intention to distribute the proceeds from the sale of our power grids business in the amount of $7.6 to $7.8 billion to our shareholders. We do so by means of share buyback programs, 2 of which we already started back in July 2020 and in April 2021. And we plan for more buyback programs. With our buyback programs so far, we have repurchased about 220 million shares in the total amount of $6.5 billion. This is just above 10% of the share capital issued at the start of the buyback programs. At last year's AGM, our shareholders, i.e. you, have approved the cancellation of 115 million shares. At this AGM, we are proposing to cancel an additional 88 million shares. And at the 2023 AGM, we will propose to cancel yet more shares. For you as shareholders, this not only increases your stake in ABB, it also drives earnings per share, which can be expected to eventually benefit our share price. Next up is Regno Henriot from Rumlang, who wishes to understand why ABB is separating from its successful turbocharging business. Thank you very much for your question. I would now like to ask our CEO, Björn Rosengren, to give his view.
Thank you very much for that question. I must start with saying that in my previous job, I had a strong relation with the turbocharging business or division. As being the CEO of Wärtsilä, we were the biggest customer of them, and I have, during the years, experienced the enormous value that this business is actually creating for our customers. It's a great business and well performing. To understand why we have decided to leave this business outside ABB, it's based on in the strategy work that we started a couple of years ago, was also to define why do we keep the group together? What kind of purpose, what impact do ABB want to create in the market? As we do not want to be a conglomerate. And in our purpose, we have said through our offerings in electrification and automation, we want to help our customers to become more sustainable. I think it's a great purpose. It's well understood by our stakeholders, our owners, our employees, but also our customers. And we decided that the businesses that do not support our purpose, we will exit or find a new home for. As I mentioned before, we left the Dodge business, and we have also decided that Turbo is not supporting our purpose. Doesn't mean that it's not a good business, because it's a fantastic business. But we believe that the Turbo business is a very strong business with driving good financial performance, and we believe it actually can stand on its own legs. And that's why we aim to spin it off to your shareholders and put it on the Swiss Stock Exchange. And we'll come back to that at the later AGM. But I was underlined that this is a fantastic business, and I have a strong belief in this business also for the future outside ABB.
Vielen Dank, Björn, für deine Ausführungen.
Thank you very much, Björn, for this explanation. This brings me to the third question, which we received under agenda item 1. The question was addressed by Simon Reichen from Unterengstring. He wishes to receive more detailed information about ABB's strategy against the increasing risks of cybercrime. Well, let me answer as follows. Appropriate protection of intellectual property and sensitive data is a top priority for ABB. This protection includes, but is not limited to, data classification and technical measures such as access control, encryption, and information protection solutions. ABB invests significantly in technology, procedures, and people to detect, prevent, and recover from security incidents. This is an ongoing process where risks are reviewed and investments and improvements are made based on the changing threat landscape. In addition, ABB implements and tests adequate recovery systems on an ongoing basis to improve the resilience of critical systems against cyber threats. Ransomware, which is basically a damaging Trojan horse software, is emerging as a crucial focus area that has seen a major escalation across industry in the past few years. ABB continuously assesses its readiness to address ransomware threats and takes necessary mitigation steps to protect the company's data and that from that of its customers. Beyond the protections of its own infrastructure and information, ABB is committed to improving the security posture of ABB's offerings and helping to reduce our customers' vulnerability to cyber threats. These measures include applying industry best practices in the entire development and operation life cycle. We also test software and devices thoroughly in a dedicated security assurance center, maintaining a software vulnerability handling process, publishing advisories on vulnerabilities, and we also support customers to configure and maintain ABB's offerings securely. This is an issue which is vital not only for ABB but all industries over the next few years, and we will always come back to this point in our management report and our annual report. Let us now proceed with the ballot on agenda item 1. The Board of Directors proposes to approve the management report, the consolidated financial statements and the annual financial statements for 2021. I declare that the management report, the consolidated financial statements and the annual financial statements for 2021 were approved with 99.85% yes votes. You can see the figures on screen. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to item 2 on our agenda, consultative vote on the 2021 compensation report. As in previous annual general meetings, we hold a separate consultative vote on the company's compensation report. The compensation report contains the principles governing the compensation paid to the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee. It also informs you about the components of such compensation and the amounts which were paid to the members of the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee for 2021. Compensation of the members of the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee was determined by the Board of Directors, taking into account recommendations made by the Compensation Committee. We have not received any questions from shareholders on this item of our agenda. Let us therefore move on to the non-binding consultative vote. The Board of Directors proposes that the Compensation Report 2021, which is part of the annual report, be approved. I declare, as you can see on the slide here, that the Compensation Report 2021 was accepted with 91.32% yes votes. We thank you for accepting the Compensation Report and for the confidence that you have thereby expressed in us. We now come to item 3 on the agenda, discharge from responsibility of the Board of Directors and the persons entrusted with management. The Board of Directors proposes that its members, as well as officers entrusted with managing the business, be discharged from their responsibilities for the 2021 financial year. For the sake of completeness, I would now like to mention that the discharge resolution shall also cover the members of the Board of Directors who left or were newly elected to the board in 2021, as well as former and newly appointed persons entrusted with management. I must also point out that members of the Board of Directors and anyone who has participated in any way in managing the business are not entitled to vote either with their own shares or with shares represented by them. The number of represented votes is reduced correspondingly. We have not received any questions from shareholders on this agenda item either. Let us therefore move on to the ballot. The Board of Directors proposes that its members, as well as officers entrusted with managing the business, be discharged from their responsibilities for the 2021 financial year. I declare that the Board of Directors and the officers entrusted with managing the business have been discharged from their responsibilities for the financial year 2021 with 99.34% yes votes. Again, you can see the figures on the slide behind me. Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all the members of the Board of Directors, as well as the officers entrusted with business management, I would like to thank you for discharging them from their responsibilities. We now move on to item 4 on our agenda, appropriation of available earnings. Ladies and gentlemen, earnings are available to the Annual General Meeting 2022, the amount of 8,442,843,936 Swiss francs. You can also see the figure on the slide behind me. The Board of Directors proposes a dividend for the financial year 2021 in the amount of 82 centimes, that's 0.82 Swiss francs per share. The proposal is in line with the company's dividend policy to pay a rising, sustainable dividend over time. The distribution is expected to take place at the end of March 2022. The distribution will be subject to Swiss withholding tax in the amount of 35%. The Board of Directors finally proposes to carry forward the remaining amount of the available earnings to the new account. For the sake of completeness, let me mention that ABB Limited will not pay dividends on treasury shares or shares held by the company or its subsidiaries, and on shares that participate in the dividend access facility as per Article 8 of the Articles of Incorporation. Shareholders who are resident in Sweden and who participate in the established dividend access facility will receive an amount in Swedish krona that corresponds to the dividend resolved and is subject to taxation according to Swedish law. The auditors confirm in their report that this proposal by the board relating to the appropriation of available earnings is in accordance with the law and articles of incorporation. And again, we have not received any questions from shareholders on this agenda item. Let us therefore move on to the ballot. I declare that the proposal of the Board of Directors relating to the appropriation of total available earnings for 2021 was approved with 99.7% yes votes. Again, thank you very much indeed. We now move on to item 5 on the agenda, capital reduction through cancellation of shares repurchased under the share buyback programs 2020 and 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find all the details on the slide behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Directors proposes A, to reduce the share capital of 246,377,791 Swiss francs and 68 centimes by 10,608,382 Swiss francs and 68 centimes to 235,769,409 Swiss francs by way of cancellation of 88,403,189 registered shares with a nominal value of 12 centimes, each which were bought back by the company under the share buyback programs announced in July 2020 and 2021. Lots of figures, but you can follow us on screen here. The board also proposes B, to confirm, as a result of the report of the auditors, that the claims of the creditors are fully covered, notwithstanding the capital reduction. And C, the board proposes to amend Article 4, Paragraph 1 of the Articles of Incorporation, according to the wording published in the invitation and presented on the slide, as per the date of entry of the capital reduction in the commercial register. We have not received any questions here either from shareholders on this agenda item. Let us now move on to the ballot. I declare that the proposal of the Board of Directors to reduce the share capital through cancellation of shares repurchased under the share buyback programs 2020 and 2021 and to amend Article 4, Paragraph 1 of the Articles of Incorporation was approved with 98.85% yes votes. Thank you.
We now move on to item 6 on the agenda, binding votes on the compensation of the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 34 of the Articles of Incorporation, the Annual General Shareholders Meeting shall approve the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Board of Directors for the next term of office and of the Executive Committee for the following financial year. The principles of compensation are specified in Article 33 of the Articles of Incorporation. The details on the proposed compensation are described in the annex to the invitation as well as in the 2021 compensation report. 6.1, binding vote on the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Board of Directors for the next term of office, meaning from the 2022 Annual General Meeting today to the 2023 Annual General Meeting. We now come to item 6.1, which is the binding vote on the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Board of Directors for the next term of office. Ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Directors proposes that the shareholders approve the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Board of Directors covering the period from the 2022 Annual General Meeting to the 2023 Annual General Meeting in the amount of 4,400,000 Swiss francs. The number of board members, as well as the compensation for individual board members, are planned to remain unchanged compared to the previous year. Accordingly, the proposed maximum aggregate amount of compensation remains unchanged compared to the previous year. We did not receive questions from shareholders on this agenda item. Let us therefore move on to the ballot. I declare that the proposed total compensation for the Board of Directors covering the period from the 2022 Annual General Meeting to the 2023 Annual General Meeting in the amount of 4,400,000 Swiss francs was approved with 99.08% yes votes. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I express my gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, now moving on to item 6.2, this is the binding vote on the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Executive Committee for the following financial year, for 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Directors proposes that shareholders approve the maximum aggregate amount of compensation of the Executive Committee for the financial year 2023 in the amount of 45,900,000 Swiss francs, as stated under agenda item 6.2. We have not received any questions from shareholders on this agenda item. Let us therefore move on to the ballot. I declare that the proposed maximum aggregate amount of compensation for the Executive Committee for the financial year 2023 in the amount of 45,900,000 Swiss francs was approved with 92.32% yes votes. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee, I would like to thank you for your trust. We now move on to item 7 on the agenda, the election to the Board of Directors and the election of the Chairman of the Board of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, the date of today's Annual General Meeting coincides with the end of the term of office of all members of the Board of Directors. As you can see in the invitation, all current board members have been nominated for re-election, and there are no additional board members proposed. Allow me at this point to respond to a question which we received on the agenda item. It is a question from our shareholder Charlotte Scott from the USA, from Old Lyme, Connecticut. She's wondering whether ABB plans to increase the percentage of women on the Board of Directors. I am happy to confirm that this is the case. As mentioned, last year we concluded in our annual report that there is a need to improve gender diversity on the Board of Directors, which is why in 2021 we sought and identified candidates that would further strengthen the board's diversity, expertise, and experience. To accommodate the candidates' personal career planning and allow for board adjustments regarding current mandates on the Board of Directors, which we also call overboarding, it is necessary that ABB proposes new members for election at next year's AGM in 2023. This year, the Board of Directors is nominating all current members for re-election, and no new members will be proposed. The Board of Directors therefore proposes to re-elect Gunnar Brock, David Constable, Federico Fleury Curado, Lars Furbeck, Jennifer Lee, Geraldine Matchett, David Meline, Satish Pai, Jacob Wallenberg, and myself, Peter Voser, as members to elect these persons mentioned as members of the Board of Directors, and myself, Peter Voser, as Chairman of the Board of Directors. The election will be effective for a term of office until the conclusion of the 2023 Annual General Meeting. No other questions from shareholders were submitted regarding this agenda item. Now we move on to the election. The results will be shown on 2 consecutive slides. The first one shows a result for Gunnar Brock, David Constable, Federico Fleury Curado, Lars Furbeck, and Jennifer Lee. And the second slide shows the results for Geraldine Matchett, David Meline, Satish Pai, Jacob Wallenberg, and myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare that all members, so the people mentioned, Gunnar Brock, David Constable, Federico Fleury Curado, Lars Furbeck, Jennifer Lee, Geraldine Matchett, David Meline, Satish Pai, Jacob Wallenberg, and myself have been re-elected as members of the Board of Directors, and I myself, with predominant majority also, re-elected as the Chairman of the Board of Directors. Esteemed shareholders, on behalf of all members of the Board of Directors, and of course especially also on my behalf, I would like to express my gratitude for your confidence.
Somit kommen wir zu Traktandum 8.
Moving on to item 8 on the agenda, the election to the Compensation Committee. The Board of Directors proposes the election of the following board members to the Compensation Committee: David Constable, Federico Fleury Curado, and Jennifer Lee. The election will be effective for a term of office until conclusion of the 2023 Annual General Meeting. We received one question regarding item 8, agenda item 8, which I'd like to give an answer to. It is a question coming from Benjamin Lautenbach from Einsiedeln. He is wondering why the Compensation Committee is composed of members of the Board of Directors only, and not in a more diversified way, for instance, with representatives of employees or major or minor shareholders. Well, the composition of the Compensation Committee is regulated by Swiss law. To be precise, Article 7 of the Ordinance Against Excessive Compensation in Public Companies states that only members of the Board of Directors are eligible to the Compensation Committee for a term until the next ordinary general meeting of shareholders. ABB, of course, as all other listed companies in Switzerland, adheres to these rules. Let us now move on to the election. I declare that David Constable, Federico Fleury Curado, and Jennifer Lee were elected as members of the Compensation Committee, in each case with predominant majority. On behalf of these 3 members, as well as the Board of Directors, I'd like to thank you for your trust. Now we move on to item 9 on the agenda, the election of the independent proxy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Directors proposes to elect Zender, Bollinger & Partner, Attorneys at Law and Notary Office in Baden as the independent proxy. They are represented in the meeting by Dr. Hans Zender, as mentioned initially, and are willing to accept the mandate and to act as independent proxy. Thank you. The election will be effective for a term of office until conclusion of the 2023 Annual General Meeting. The Board of Directors confirms in this context that the proposed candidate is independent. We have not received any questions regarding this agenda item. Let us therefore move on to the election. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare that Zender, Bollinger & Partner was elected with 98.96% yes votes as independent proxy. Thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward to the collaboration with you, Dr. Zender. Moving on to item 10 on the agenda, the election of the auditors. Ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Directors proposes to elect KPMG AG as auditors for the financial year 2022. KPMG AG has declared itself willing to accept the mandate to act as auditors also for the financial year 2022. Thank you. We have not received any questions from shareholders on this agenda item. Therefore, we can move on to the election. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare that KPMG AG was elected with 98.3% yes votes as auditors for the financial year 2022. We have now dealt with all items on this year's agenda and carried out all the elections, which takes me to the end of this meeting. On behalf of the Board of Directors and our CEO, Björn Rosengren, the Executive Committee, and all employees of the entire ABB Group, I'd like to thank you for your trust, but also we'd like to express our special gratitude to all our employees, including the Executive Committee and our CEO. We thank all of them for an excellent performance in 2021, a year that most certainly was not one of the easy years in our company's history. The next ordinary annual general meeting, and I do hope that we will be able to meet in person again, will take place next year on March 23rd, 2023. I really do hope that I will be able to welcome all of you, including our Executive Committee and our CEO, be able to welcome you here in person. And of course, again, we'll be sending you all the relevant documents in a timely manner. We are already looking forward to a lively exchange at next year's AGM on March 23rd, 2023. I herewith conclude today's annual general meeting. I wish you all the best. Stay healthy, and I hope that despite the difficulties we're experiencing all around us, war and pandemic, that you, despite that, will have a good year. Thank you very much, and I conclude.